Hey there folks, welcome back to another Last Epic build video. My previous build I'd done was the Flame Wraiths, and today we're going to be taking a look at Poison Stacking Skeleton Rogues. Now, when I found a Lethal Concentration Spear, I thought it would be a cool thing to build around because I don't see, Skeleton Rogues being used often, and for the most part, they're built just like the other skeletons, which is around Lich's Envy, just stacking cold damage. So doing Poison seemed like a nice change of pace. If you're unfamiliar with Poison and Plague, which are two different poison dots, let me briefly cover how they work as they're pretty much the core of this build. So poisons have a base damage of 20 poison damage over 3 seconds. There's no limit to how many poison stacks you can put on an enemy at once, so the more the better. Chance to apply poison does add additional stacks if you're over 100%, so if you have 300% chance to apply poison, you will apply 3 stacks of poison per hit. 150% chance would apply 1, with a 50% chance to apply a second, that sort of thing. Each stack of poison also applies a -5 to poison resistance, so again, more stacks means more damage. This is also reduced to 2% on bosses, but it's still negative poison res per stack, which is great. Plague, similar to poison, but does 150 base poison damage over 4 seconds, and is limited to just 1, so it's just a fatter single poison. However, this also spreads to nearby enemies if a plagued enemy dies before its timer's up. Since Plague scales off poison damage as well, it's nice to get both on your build and take advantage of the negative poison resistances given by poison, and then using that to also buff Plague damage, so that's kind of what we were going for. So with that out of the way, I figured grabbing a bunch of rogues who could use my poison damage modifiers would be a much better way to apply dozens of stacks of poisons at a time and then scale that, especially with this Lethal Concentration Spear. So while this is technically a build showcase, I'm not going to tout about it being just amazing because frankly it's not. At least in the way I'm using it. Maybe it can be better, I'm not sure, but I'm not loving it. So hopefully if you had the idea for poison rogues, you can watch this video and make improvements for yourself, or if you're interested in the build, maybe I can give you just some of the insight as to how it plays and what downsides it has before you actually invest the time and resources into making it. So first let me say that leveling this was pretty smooth. I was using mages and rogues together, and for the most part they were just blasting through maps or echoes. No problem. It wasn't until like the 200 plus corruptions where this thing really started to slow down and hurt a lot. See, the problem is you have to be in melee range just as much as the rogues do, so there's a lot of damage coming your way, and really our only defenses are crit avoidance, our resistances, and this ward bubble. We can't use a shield because this is a spear, sadly, so your build is super squishy. Even with the 6 to 7k ward bubble, it's just not good enough for the higher tier corruptions. Just because there's a lot of enemies in your face, and because you're playing a dot build, they don't die right away. It's not like you instant tap them once and they're gone. Like, they actually get time to attack, and that's where the real kicker is here. We can't use the Heart of Ukaros either, because Harvest is not a spell, it's a melee attack, and we could forego Harvest and run Blood Rip instead to direct your minions and stay out of the way, but you're certainly always going to be out of the range of Aura of Decay, which is providing us most of our damage through reducing enemy poison res by like 80 plus, which is based on our int. So while the rogues and mages are great for bosses, well, I shouldn't say great, they're fine for bosses, they don't do well at mapping because enemies just take too long to rack up poisons and die, so they get to attack back, and that causes our rogues to die rather frequently because they're getting hit. Not that it's a big deal, so we can just summon them back really quick, but it just does mean that we're dealing less damage because we have to, resummon them, and then we don't have all uptime on all our rogues, and we're also taking more damage in other builds because they're actually getting in hits. It's not good. Anyway, as I was saying though, the build does really show signs of fatigue at doing the 200 plus corruptions, and I really didn't take it much further than that because I was just dying too much and it wasn't feeling good. Putting yourself in the front lines and waiting for the rogues to do their job just wasn't cutting it, and sadly because we're using Aura, Decay, and Harvest, we have to be in the front lines, we don't really have an option. I did manage to do a couple tier 4 Julras, and that felt alright, not too many complaints there because resetting skeletons doesn't feel that bad because we drop 2 or 3 at a time. So like the build can work, and I'm sure with some improvements to the gear it can be pushed into the higher corruptions. I just didn't feel like it was clearing fast enough or safely enough to warrant pumping more time and effort into making this thing work. But then again, maybe this video gives someone an idea or insight they need to improve on it and take it further than I could. So with that kind of long introduction out of the way, let's talk about the gear, skills, passive trees, and all that stuff. So for the gear here, we're using the Lethal Concentration Spear. This is kind of the whole bread and butter to the build. This is what's giving us our poison modifiers are applying to our rogues, and so the whole poison rogue thing comes from this. The 25% chance to cast Jade Dust on Harvest is really nice, because that gives us an extra 50% poison damage, which also gets tripled for their shurikens, so that's great. Now as far as the whole poison damage modifier supplies to skeleton goes, That also applies generic forms of damage. So if you have anything that's pretty generic, then that's also going to apply. Right now we have a 629% poison damage, which is getting added to them, and then 817 when we have our Aura of Decay up. But if you have things like increased damage at low life, or, you know, in this case, like Transplant, getting increased global damage is also going to be applying poison, which is going to get buffed to our minions as well. Stuff like that, global damage does help. And then we have the armor Exsanguinous, which I'm actually using on most of my Alkalite builds because there's not really other ways to get good defenses as far as I could tell. This one, we are running just a lot of skeleton stuff on it. We do have a T7 skeleton mod, and then, you know, T1 maximum skeletons is fine, and then we have just increased max health. So this is basically, you know, same with the Sacrifice Lich build. We're going to be pairing that with this Last Steps of the Living to keep our life down, so we have a big fat award bubble, and this is basically our defense. We're just basically going to double your HP pool. So that's that. These just run health and straight up avoidance. I mean, you can obviously roll better stuff, but that's the core defensive for this build right here. Helmet, we have just, you know, minion damage helmet with some poison damage. That's also going to be applying to our minions. Health, resistances, intelligence. We are running Ribbons of Blood, so our minions cannot be crit. This also gives them some form of leech to help keep them alive, but they will still die. And then Hollow Finger for the extra skeleton, so we're good there. Belts and gloves are, you know, same old, some minion health, some intelligence. We do want some minion health so they don't die so fast. So we got a little bit there. And then we're running resistances, life, you know, pretty standard stuff. Nothing too surprising here. For our relic, we have the relic that increases our minion damage, health, all that stuff. And then this one happens to have Aura of Decay level 3, which honestly isn't super important. Like, you can get rid of Respite or some AoE. Like, it's not a big deal. You can move stuff. You don't need 3 points of that. I just happen to have that, so you can put something else in there for sure. For our idols, which I kind of skipped over, I don't really know what to use for the idols. We're running, you know, apply mark on death for hit for bosses, which is nice. And then the smaller idols, we have Plague, so we get some just a little bit of extra poison damage that way. And then poison damage and minion poison damage is basically a double dip. It's going to be a 54% poison damage for our minions because all our base poison damage is going to be added to them as well. For the larger idols, we have increased poison damage while Aura of Decay is active, which has given us our huge fat chunk of poison damage. And then again, double dip on the minions. So we're getting, you know, 170% poison damage here, and we're running 2 of these. So yeah, a lot of poison damage, a lot of poison damage. And then for the little spaces we have left, we just got some life. So yeah. And this is where we're getting our fat 817% poison damage for our rogues. Yeah, like it ramps up pretty good. I just don't think that this justifies the amount of effort it takes to run this build. So I want to talk about the skills. Obviously, we're going to be running our rogues, and we're going to be running individual operators as well as dread phalanx. So we cut our skeletons down by half. So if you have 9 skeletons, we're actually going to be able to use 5 still. So that's kind of the goal, is to get 5. And then these are going to give them 80% more damage. And then since we have 5, individual operator is going to cut this in, you know, by 5s. So we have 40% increased damage and cooldown. So between these 2 points, you actually get 120% multiplicative damage for all our skeletons. So these 5 bigger skeletons are going to be a bit stronger than having 10 smaller ones. That being said, you could also take those out and run more sweeping strikes and then run more necrotic convictions to get more. And then they're going to even out a bit better and have the skeletons be better for clearing multiple enemies. The only downside to that is that they do die, and so you're going to have to resummon a lot more of those. And so you're going to have to use Empty the Graves more often, and, you know, summon 10 back is going to cost a lot more mana, and we don't have, you know, too much mana regen here. So I went with the less amount because it's easier to manage them. And then everything else, you know, we're getting rid of our archers, we're getting rid of our warriors, we're going to run pure rogues, and then, you know, acid flask for acid flask. So skeleton tree is pretty standard, nothing special here. If you don't have 24 skeletons, like if you have like 22, 23, you can easily take off a point of necrotic convictions, or again, you can just get rid of individual operator and dread phalanx and just get more into these, and then you're going to even out the same pretty much. Or you can even just take off Empty the Graves if you don't feel like you need to summon 3 at a time. It's honestly, it's rare. Against Julra you might, but that's about it. So you can take off points there too. So Aura of Decay I'm also running because this is like kind of like the big key to this build. So we're going to take less poison damage. We're going to give enemies more reduced poison resistances, which is huge. And then we're going to give enemies minus 1% per int, which will rock in, what, about 78 int, 80 int. So we're going to basically just destroy all their poison resistance. And that's kind of where a bulk of our damage is going to be coming from. We went down here to Plague Rat for larger AoE, and then Respite, just so we have some more poison resistance. Again, if you don't have 23, you can just get rid of that and some other stuff. I ended up coming over here to get the Armor Shred because I didn't like taking the constant poison stacks, even with high poison resistances. That does kill us, so we went with the Armor Shred instead. And that does shred enemy armor as well. It's just so we don't have to manage that poison in life for us. And then we're coming up to Plague Bearers, so minions get an additional 100% chance to poison. And then we're going to get Infectious Bones, which increases their poison damage. So again, a lot of poison for our minions. This is the other key part of the build. Dreadshade, Dreadshade's good. It's just so we get, extra necrotic damage, and then we're going to convert that to poison. So we're going to turn our thing over here into poison, so all the extra added necrotic damage gets turned into chance to poison, which is why we get a ton of poison stacks. And then we're going to have a larger AoE, drop it on one minion. And then we also actually want this so that we're affected by the Dreadshade. That way our added poison damage then gets put back into the skeletons. So we can kind of double dip there. And then, more area. And then, minions affected get more damage. Great. We did add some extra points. I picked up Damned here just to get some extra dots in, but you can probably move that around to something else. I didn't want Pernicious Pact because that's going to eventually kill your skeletons. So, yeah, that's bad. And I didn't see really anything else here that was actually going to help our build too much. So this is kind of like our setup for Dreadshade. We're running Harvest because we kind of have to run Harvest just so we can get that extra damage off the weapon. But then we also can apply Poison and shred poison resistance here. So this is going to help our skeletons damage as well as running Undead Harvest, which is going to make enemies focus target whatever you're hitting, and then they take 5% more damage, which is nice. And then we have a little bit of extra AoE here, but ultimately that's nothing like special about Harvest. It's just our little thing so we can redirect our minions. Finality is actually great. We get the coal at 12%, good way to kill bosses. But yeah, Harvest, we just kind of need it. Last skill, I wasn't actually sure what to put in. I was running around with Poison Shades or with Poison Mages. I ended up going with Transplant just so we can have the armor, so we can negate kind of like our little bit of shred armor we have here. So again, we get just a little bit of armor back, which is nice. And then also over here with Transplant, this global damage is going to be applied to our minions as well while it's on cooldown. We can get some mana back, which is great if we need to resummon a lot of skeletons for the boss fights. When we use Transplant, minions getting 60% increased damage is nice as well. And then bone armor. Plus then we have a movement skill because we actually don't move very fast on our own. But you could probably remove this and then go back and try, running mages or wraiths or something else. This one was just kind of like a dumb pick at the end. As far as our passive tree goes, I actually went a lot of points into Alkalite here just so we can get Dominion of Rot. This way we have minions getting more poison damage and chance to poison, so we're getting a lot more stacks at a time. And then I put in an extra point since I needed to come down over here to get Soul Aegis, and then, Putrid Demise, we had to get a point in over here. But yeah, for the most part, pretty standard tree, just, typically where you would stop at 20, I just had to move down to get, right here is 25, plus 6 is our 31, so it's a minimum we could get. So that's for the poison. The Lich, we have, Intelligence and Mana Regen. Intelligence is always good. And then I'm starting to put my last few points here into Desolation for my minion dot damage, which is Poison, Plague, Damned, all that stuff. Necromancer, we're kind of going over here to get the Aegis Fall for double armor shreds, trying to shred as much armor as we can. Minion health is also very nice, extra skeletons, some survivability for minion resistances and minion armor. This one we obviously need Tyrant's Legion for poison penetration, and then cast attack speed, poison chance, poison resistance. Again, we're trying to stack as much poison as we can. Actually, I should take off the Skeleton Mage. I don't need this anymore, but okay, so remove that 1 point. I have Veins of Malice, which I don't know if it's great. I'm pretty sure the uptime is good enough, because while we don't get the uptime proc from Harvest because it's not technically a spell, it's a melee, We do get it from doing transplant. You can see they get their haste buff there. And then we also get it for dropping dread shades on them. So we do have pretty good uptime on it. It's not the best, but you know, it's good enough that I feel like for the 5 points it's worth using. So there's that. There's not much else on this tree that's going to help our poison damage because we don't want to scale crit. Crit's not going to help them at all. The int would be nice, but that's just, you know, something kind of minor. And everything else is just more for raw and element, and we just don't need it. So that's why once we finished up this tree, I could take off this point here, and then we can start moving over to Lich to get more damage over time. And then you can get more intelligence over here. Or you can even get, you know, poison damage for you, which is going to increase the poison damage of your rogues as well. Alright, so like I said, definitely not optimized. Like, I could really do a lot better with the gear. Hell, I only have like a tier 5 poison damage roll on my lethal concentration. Need to find like tier 6 or 7 for that. So the build can get better if you just get some more gear into that. But let me talk about the few other ideas I tried that kind of fell flat for me and I didn't really care for. First is that instead of transplant, I was running mages, as I had mentioned earlier. The mages themselves are fine and great for mapping because they can kind of AoE a bit better and also apply poison. But I was having issues with the speed of their hungering souls they shoot. It's super slow, and my rogues are often killing enemies by the time the mage's projectiles would actually connect. So I kind of opted for the Abyssal Knights, or whatever they're called, because they would be in melee range too, and that did felt better. So I did start using those later on. I'm still iffy on whether or not I want to keep Transplant or the Skeleton Mages, just because Transplant's great for dodging Julra. My only problem with those Death Knights is that they do die on bosses, and resummoning them one at a time is abysmal. I also had tried to run volatile zombies and go for like the poison puke on them, but that was just eating up too much mana to do. And I also didn't have time to use harvest because I was just constantly trying to drop some zombies. And since lethal concentration is only applying my poison damage to the rogues, we actually aren't scaling zombie poison damage all that much. So they didn't really help a whole lot. I'm not really sure what else I can do for this build, so I'm kind of shelving it for now. It worked fine up until the super late game, and maybe it'll be better in future updates if we get more poison applications for our skeletons, or maybe some more AoE somehow. But this is kind of going to be it for me, so thank you all for watching, and thank you to all my Patreon members. It's always greatly appreciated, and I love you guys. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to jump into Discord, the chat, Theorycraft, Hangout, whatever, Discord description's in the link below. But yeah, thanks. That's it for me. Peace, y'all. Have fun. Bye.